Hi, Jim. How are you?
Hi, Jared.
Can you
Can
hear
you hear
me?
me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I guess I better put these on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. How are you?
Good. I'm just fine. How are you? How are you weathering
I'm doing well.
the current climate with the COVID-19 issues?
Uh, I'm weathering it okay. Luckily, I diversified some of the stuff that I was working on. So, Book Live was not, Book Live was very impacted by it, but
Uh-huh.
my personal income stream was diversified. So we're doing okay here. How about you?
Well, good. Yeah, we're doing all right. I sold the mosquito trap business last fall, but the remaining business is an industrial products business that seems to be doing all right. It's about 7 million in sales, and May was a little bit less than last year in terms of sales, which I think was fortunate that it wasn't worse than that. And June is going to be a disaster because we have a supplier in India that is backed up and not able to supply us. So I think July will be bad. Let's see. June will be bad. July will be better because we'll have our product. We have about 10 containers waiting to be shipped from India, and we'll get them in July. So I think that'll be better. But other than that, we're doing fine.
Good.
I
Yeah.
appreciate the chance to talk with you. I think there's a little bit of a delay on this computer setup. My computer is through a dish satellite arrangement, and it is a little slow. So apologize for that.
That's all right. We'll make it work for sure.
I'm not sure I understand.
Sorry.
Oh,
That
dear.
was Siri.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to really kind of delve into the background a little bit. You're certainly a full-fledged entrepreneur with everything that you're doing, and it's been that way for a little while. But I just wonder if way back when you were in grade school and your early years, if you had a lemonade stand, or if you had any other activity that was entrepreneurial in nature.
So in grade school, I did do a little bit of lawn mowing and snow shoveling for my neighbors.
Uh-huh, good.
So yeah, that was just a nice way to earn a little bit of pocket change. I wouldn't say I had a full-fledged system of how I did it. I kind of relied on the generosity of my family and my parents to say, hey, Margot next door, Jared does snow shoveling. Do you need your driveway shoveled today? And I think when I would do one driveway, I would I would finish that driveway, walk to the next door neighbor, knock on their door and say, hey, I just did your next door neighbor's yard. Do you want yours done? I'll do it for like $20.
And it worked, I bet.
It did for a couple of them, yeah.
Now,
But then
did
I
you grow
got
up in
tired.
Pennsylvania? Where did you grow up?
New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Central New Jersey,
Okay.
like Princeton area, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Well, when you decided to go off, or did you have any other entrepreneurial activities in grade school or high school or anything like that?
Yeah, actually. So high school, I mean, I consider this entrepreneurial, but I started a student organization, not with the intention of selling anything, more so with the intention of creating an experience for me and my fellow students.
Uh-huh.
So I started a student student organization from scratch, which was the African Drum Circle Club.
Wow.
And so I got some experience doing all the administrative paperwork to get that started. And then I wrote a grant in high school to acquire several authentic drums that we
wow.
could use to explore the culture and the music. So
Wow,
I was
terrific.
a junior or senior in high school. And then
Hey,
I did have a secondary, I did have another entrepreneurial activity not related to school. So when I was 13 or 14 years old, I had just taught myself how to code as a hobby.
Ah,
And that in itself wasn't the entrepreneurial activity. What I did next with it while I was still 14 years old was I signed up for an online freelancing website and successfully acquired a client who hired me to develop a very basic hotel room reservation system
huh.
for his property in Aruba.
Wow. Did you have to go check it out?
No, I would have loved to. I think if I had gone and checked it out, then my cover would have been blown because I never told him I was only 14 years old.
Oh, oh man, that's great. But it was a successful project.
Yeah.
Great.
I had no idea how to price my services. I think I did it for like $400,
Uh-huh.
which that would have been a $10,000 to $20,000 system if it weren't done by
Oh my
somebody who knew
gosh.
what they were doing.
That's great. Super.
But hey, to a high schooler, $400 is no laughing matter.
Not at all.
Plus, I
Well,
got the experience of acquiring a client and seeing a project through to completion.
that's great. Good experience. Any entrepreneurs in the family?
Not not my parents, but my grandfather. He ran his own accounting firm,
Uh-huh.
and he was always very motivating and inspirational to me and my brother. He had some really good stories about starting his business and why he did things certain ways and why he had to have a gun underneath his desk because of some of his clients.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I think his business was in kind of a rougher neighborhood.
Gee whiz. I guess if he didn't come out with the right numbers, people would get upset, huh?
I guess so. Or maybe they assumed that an accounting firm had cash on hand.
Oh, maybe
Which
that was it.
probably what wasn't a correct assumption, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great.
So yeah, so the
Uh,
entrepreneur skipped a generation because me and my brother are both entrepreneurs. So my
Uh-huh.
brother
Really?
is an entrepreneur. Yeah,
What does he do?
so he manufactures and sells his own gold panning experience kits.
Gold panning.
So
My gosh.
yeah, so basically he makes bags of essentially dirt mixed with gold, gold flakes, and then the kit comes with like instructions on how to pan it and collect the gold from it. So you can learn the basics of what being a gold panner is like.
Oh, that's pretty neat. How in the world did he ever get into that? That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, my brother has always had an obsessive personality, and one of his hobbies and interests was gold mining and gold panning himself.
Uh-huh.
And so he would go out to streams and dig through dig through the dirt himself, find gold, and realize that this was an exciting experience, that he could make a kit to give somebody else that experience. But I think the key to his success, though, it was not that actual, it wasn't the product. It's never the product. It was the fact that he learned marketing and sales through some of his other jobs. Like he was a band manager for a while, so he had to understand marketing and selling. Then he was a car salesman for a little bit. So he learned how to sell and put together an online distribution channel for his gold panning experience kits and learned how to scale that marketing system.
Did he pan gold in New Jersey, or did he go out other places?
He actually started in Maryland. Yeah, because he was living in Alexandria, or Virginia, and Cabin John, Maryland. And I think there are some gold-rich streams or rivers down there.
My gosh.
And then he would take some trips out west to try it too.
Well, my wife and I took a trip to Alaska a couple of years ago, and we were supposed to do a fly-in to Denali, and it fogged in and we couldn't do it, so we had to do an alternative, and that was gold panning. And we actually did find some gold flakes, but I think they were plants. I don't think they really were in the stream.
No.
But we did give that a try, and it was fun. The person that was the guide was from Wisconsin. Couldn't believe it.
Oh, wow.
So here we are, Wisconsin people, and
Small
we're going to
world.
Alaska and getting a guide that was from Wisconsin. But it was a fun trip. That's our only experience at gold panning. But that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
When
Sounds
you
fun.
were in high school or in your first college experience, were there any entrepreneurial activities? I know in high school there's DECA, D-E-C-A, and Junior Achievement. And I just wondered if you had a brush with any of those activities when you were in elementary or high school.
No, I didn't really encounter other entrepreneurs really until, well, I guess post graduating my undergrad.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in my undergrad, I was a music education major. And so the really only entrepreneurial experience I had there was also starting another student organization and getting a pretty significant travel grant to go to one of the music conventions.
Uh-huh. Okay, great. How did you happen to come to Wisconsin?
So yeah, that is a complicated story. It involves a girl.
Oh, uh-huh.
So when I was in undergrad, I was dating this girl who she was a double music major and microbiology major.
Wow.
And that was in Penn State was my undergrad.
Uh-huh.
And so post graduating, she immediately went to UW-Madison for her doctoral in microbiology.
Uh-huh.
I had went to the other side of the country, well, back to the East Coast, to get experience as a music teacher.
Uh-huh.
And we were dating, I think it was 3 years in undergrad and then 2 years long distance. And by the time we got to the end of our second year, we decided, let's move closer together. She couldn't give up her PhD, you know, she wanted to finish that out.
Uh-huh.
I had a blossoming music teaching career, but I wasn't entirely satisfied. So I felt a little bit more able to give that up.
Sure.
But, you know, we were both type A people. So I wasn't giving it up without having something lined up in Wisconsin.
Sure.
And that's when I applied for my master's degree at UW Milwaukee.
Uh-huh.
And so once
Was
I
it,
got
was it
accepted
an
there,
orchestra conducting at that time? Was that how you started? Is that what you had decided you wanted to do?
yes, that's right. I don't want to. I noticed one of the questions that you had in your document was about entrepreneurial experiences after graduation.
Yeah.
And there was a pretty significant one between my degrees that I want to make sure that I share with you.
Uh-huh.
It is now a good time to share that, or
Sure.
do you want me to come back to that?
Right. Uh-huh.
Okay. So when I graduated my undergrad and I started public school music teaching in New Jersey, I was immediately unsatisfied with the amount of music I personally was playing. And I wanted to find an opportunity to continue playing, not just teaching. So I found this local opera company that was a nonprofit. They were fiscally sponsored, so they weren't a nonprofit themselves. They were sponsored by someone else. And I immediately volunteered my time for them, saying, hey, I will increase your musical performances and I will add an orchestra to what you're already doing so that the performance is more,
Robust.
grand. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I had a role there as an assistant for a while. Then at the end of the first season, the executive director moved to Detroit, and all of the other staff and the singers and the musicians, they were very disappointed because they, we had some really nice momentum going and we wanted to keep it going.
Sure.
And so I volunteered to step up to the plate and take over where she left off, started it as a new company, and immediately decided, like, instead of us being a fiscally sponsored organization, I am going to apply and make it an actual 501c3.
Uh-huh.
So I learned how to do that, did all the paperwork myself.
Wow.
I'm going to make this website better than it ever has been so that people can purchase tickets online. So I just took on the burden of redesigning the website and enabling online transactions. And then as the executive director of a new nonprofit, I realized we need money to do what we need to do.
Sure.
So I raised, I think it was $10,000 or $15,000 for the season. So I learned how to network with donors and convey the value of what our organization was doing to the community and get some buy-in from local philanthropists.
Wow.
And I also was able to get a couple yeah, I also initiated a sales process to get corporate sponsorships. And so we got a couple local businesses to sponsor some of the performances.
Great.
So
Right.
yeah, we had a successful first season.
Pretty neat.
But unfortunately, after the first season, that's when me and that girlfriend decided it was time to be closer together.
Uh-huh.
And we had a first season was also our last season.
Okay. Then how long were you at UWM? How long did it take to get your master's?
That was a 2-year degree.
Uh-huh. Okay. Did the romance continue or did that break off?
It broke off right before I came to UW Milwaukee.
Oh, really? Oh, gosh. Well, that's okay, right?
Yeah, it all works out,
Yes, it does indeed.
Married now.
Yeah, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, when did you, when you're in Wisconsin, when did you first start your entrepreneurial activities? Did you hit the ground running and decide you're going to have a string quartet right off the bat, or was that did that come later?
I'd say the idea came about halfway through the first year.
Uh-huh.
And that was a result of a couple things. The first of which was money was starting to become tight for me in grad school.
Uh-huh.
So I had no income stream, and I did actually apply for a job at the Milwaukee Rep Theater.
Uh-huh.
And I took it, and I was doing the job there, but it took up a lot of time. The pay was not great, and it wasn't related to what I was studying. So then I did take on another job, I think at the same time actually, as a bar trivia host, working for a local entrepreneur here. And that's when I kind of learned about like the events industry and being on the other side of it. Like how do you actually get people to book your shows? And so that was all in the first semester and a half at UW Milwaukee. And then I was just getting so frustrated because the things I was doing was not related to my passion. And I thought to myself, I have this great experience of starting a nonprofit opera company and getting people to pay for performances. And I forgot to mention that when I was in, right after graduating college, I did join up with another group that played a lot of weddings.
Uh-huh.
And so just all of these things came to a head halfway through my first year. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm starting my own company, and it's going to have a really good website. I'm going to get to play my instrument and do what I love, and I'm going to get paid for it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And so once I had that idea, there was no turning back. I realized I couldn't not do it. And so yeah, the Dream City Strings officially started probably about February or March of 2016, which was the second semester of grad school.
Uh-huh.
And then formally, like once we started to get bookings and things, that's when I decided, okay, this is a real business. I've got to register the LLC, take it very seriously. And from there, I had to establish structures and procedures and systems. And yeah, so that's
your string quartet having bookings. Was that getting other people bookings as well at that time, or was that something that came later?
That was something that came later. So I was really fortunate to be immersed in UW Milwaukee, and particularly the fact that I reached out to the business department and came across, Brian Thompson and Nicole Green, because without them, I was receiving no direction from the music department. In fact, there was a little bit of like discouragement from doing what I was doing because it was taking away from my studies.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah, it was like in my second year of grad school when I came across, CEO, and I met you. Went to Tampa thanks again for the sponsorship.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, yeah, got really immersed in the Ideas Challenge, student startup challenge.
You were, your project was one of the Student Startup Challenge projects?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then another organization that I got involved with while I was still in grad school was the Commons.
Yes,
Which, are you familiar with that program? Yeah.
a little bit. Did you actually take part in the Commons program?
I did, yeah.
Uh-huh. I don't know enough about it.
So I'm grateful that
Is it actually sponsored by a university or is it completely separate?
it's a separate organization, but they have a lot of university partners
Uh-huh, okay.
and corporate partners too. Kohl's is a very big partner.
Uh-huh. You were actually had a formal program with the Commons. It was, you were accepted and actually took part in a program, right?
Yeah. I think it was an 8-week program.
Uh-huh. Did it cost you anything or did they provide any funding?
It did not cost anything, but there was no funding.
Right.
But I think that's okay because the idea is to teach you to earn your own money.
Yeah, absolutely. You bet. I suppose you became acquainted with the Commons through contacts at UWM.
Yeah, I think I was referred to it by Brian Thompson.
Uh-huh. When you were finishing up your master's, were you at that point decided that you were going to have your own business and not go work for somebody?
Yeah, that's a good question. Being that I already had a business in my second year of grad school, I definitely had a different outlook than most of my peers, probably all of my peers. Because in, the final semester or two of grad school, people were looking for jobs or trying to figure out what's the next step. And I wasn't necessarily doing the same thing. I was like, how can I grow what I already have?
Uh-huh.
So instead of applying to like tons of jobs or tons of universities for teaching positions, I did apply to two positions only. And they were like extremely prestigious positions as conductors for either the U.S. Army Band or the U.S. Air Force Band.
Wow.
So I guess, yeah, I didn't even think about this, but like being an entrepreneur made me set my goals for other areas of my life much higher.
Uh-huh.
That I wouldn't be satisfied. Wouldn't be satisfied with what everybody else in my class was doing.
Did you get an honest look from these folks?
Oh yeah. So for the Air Force Band, they had like hundreds of applicants. Then they invited 10 to audition in person in Washington, D.C. actually. And I was one of the 10. Then from that, they subjected us to a rigorous set of tests. obviously there was the, like, are you physically fit enough to enter into the force? But then there was an academic style test where they tested all of your musical theory training and history. And then the final component was an audition where I had to conduct the top of the top U.S. Air Force band.
Wow.
And there was 10 different, like, officers around the room
Oh,
evaluating my ability to lead this band.
oh man.
So it was a rigorous process.
Sure sounds like
After
it.
the audition, the colonel pulled me into his room, into his office, and he said to me, like, "Hey, Jared, you were one of the top 2 candidates. You're right now you're in second place. There are a couple, like, we could tell that you're young in your experience. You know, many of the people here have already had a career. So we know that you're young. So that's why we're going with this other guy first." But
Huh.
he wanted me to stay in touch with him and do some more training and then come back the next year and try again.
Wow. Well, that's impressive.
Which, yeah, but of course, I did not stay in touch with him because running my own business was a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
it was starting to be financially, feasible. And so I kind of gave up on that dream of being a conductor.
Well, I think if you had been a conductor there, that would have been what you would have done. Period. It doesn't sound like you'd go anywhere else from there. Maybe so, but doesn't sound like it. You'd be a part of the military, and you'd be the head guy in the music area. And it doesn't seem like there's much else to do, much farther to go.
Yeah, for sure. And the fact that those bands travel all over the world would have made it very difficult to maintain a business.
Yeah. And it may be been difficult to maintain a household also.
Right.
Well, you graduated in 2019 or 18?
I think it was 2017, actually.
Okay. And you basically have been running your businesses since then. Is it 2 businesses? Dream City and...
It's one business.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, one business with 2 offshoots,
Okay.
basically a DBA. Yeah.
Now the one is where you're actually a performer, and the other is where you're arranging.
Mhm.
You're acting as a clearinghouse and making sure people get paid and have a rigorous program for doing their
Yeah,
music.
right. So I like to think of booklive.com is basically a wine store, except instead of wine, it's serving different musicians. Whereas Dream City Music is one of the labels of wines that is in that wine store.
Okay.
So you can't buy Book Live wine. You can buy Dream City wine, but you can also buy, the Milwaukee String Quartet wine. You can buy. Does that analogy make sense?
Sure, it does. Which is more lucrative for you?
So yeah, that's a good question. As of right now, the way that the business, especially with coronavirus and everything, Dream City is more lucrative, but I expect that to change in the next couple of months.
Uh-huh.
simply because it's harder to scale one label of wine.
Yes.
It's much easier to scale everybody's wines.
Yes. Yes. Is it sufficient to support you at this particular point in time? Should have asked this question 4 months ago.
Corona- Yeah, if you'd asked this question 4 months ago, I would have said yes. But right now, no. And I mentioned at the beginning of the call that I have diversified. I actually, at the same time, am running a software development agency. We don't advertise or anything. I only get clients kind of by word of mouth.
Huh?
So yeah, I make money by developing software for other people's businesses.
Okay. Gosh, and you learned coding when you were very young,
Yeah,
and you've kind of done it ever since, I suppose, off and on.
yeah, it kind of comes full circle.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's pretty neat. Where do you think you're going to go from here? Assuming that we finally get rid of this coronavirus thing.
Hmm.
And I think that'll happen as they get treatments and as they get a vaccination, and I think it'll all settle down, but I don't know when that is.
Yeah, for sure. So my immediate plan, which I'm already enacting even though coronavirus is happening, is to scale up booklive.com.
Mm-hmm.
And so just see how big that can get, see how many musicians and other artists I can help. Especially the big problem that it solves is that artists never got a formal degree in business. They don't know how to run their art form as a business. And so despite the fact that they want to make a living doing it, they can't.
Mm.
So BookLive's whole mission is to help them make a living doing what they love by doing all of the business that they don't have the time or expertise to do.
Boy, that's a great service. Is there anybody else like you anywhere?
There are a couple players across the country. I mean, you could think of Wedding Wire or other online wedding directories to find your wedding entertainment as competitors. The difference between us and Wedding Wire is that these directory style services, all that they do is they facilitate a connection between somebody who wants to hire a musician and a musician who doesn't know how to price their services and conduct business. So they're just connectors. What we do is we actually help the artists price their services and come up with all of the mathematical formulas that go into their pricing, so that when a couple who wants to hire a string quartet comes to booklive.com, they say, we're getting married July 4th at this venue in Milwaukee. We want a string quartet. Click a button. The system does all the complicated math, and then it presents them with a price tag and videos where they could just enter their credit card right in the same exact experience and check wedding planning for their music off the list all in 5 minutes.
That's great. What a service. I would think that would sell everywhere.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, great. Wow.
But we have to prove that in Milwaukee, and this is our year to do that.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Now, your wife, what does she do? What is her activity?
So she's also a musician,
Uh-huh.
and she works as a sales representative for Hal Leonard,
Oh, wow.
which is a music. Yeah, you're familiar, music publishing company.
Right. Yeah, one of the biggest in the world, I guess, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
So
How does she feel
I
about
want to.
you being an entrepreneur?
She is very supportive.
Uh-huh.
She, yeah, she has my back all the time. I would say she doesn't understand exactly what it means to be an entrepreneur. Of course, don't quote me on that. So it does take patience and explaining, and ultimately decision making to, say there are some points where my marriage is more important than me answering that email late at night.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's been new, is finding that balance for me.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and it takes a certain amount of understanding uh, from your life partner uh, with the kind of stresses you go through and the uncertainty that you have. People think that when you have a job working for the man, you have security. Well, you really don't. You have security while you're working for the man, but you may not be working for the man if you have a downturn like what we're having now, or some other event occurs. So it's just different. It's just different. And it takes some understanding. I mean, you've talked with Betty, I'm sure, and she's had a lot of experiences with me that some have been very difficult as you go through the trials of entrepreneurship. And it takes a lot of understanding and tolerance for the unknown, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I'm okay with uncertainty.
Yep. Well, I think I think we've covered most of what I wanted to ask about. Is there anything else that you thought of as we have gone through this process that would be helpful? My mission is to talk about students that have become entrepreneurs, and are they entrepreneurs before they're students, or is the spark created when they're a student? Is it just realizing something that they had inside them all along? Are there particular characteristics? Are there any experiences like a family that would give you an example of here's how you might do things, or any early experiences in your own life that would put you on a course that you may not even have thought about if you hadn't had those experiences? I find that a lot of freshmen never even considered having their own business, much less starting it when they're in college. And I just wonder if there are differences between people starting out like that.
Sure. And I would probably put myself in that bucket of, I didn't consider having my own business until, well, I guess it was the opera company right after undergrad.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think, having your own business is a really nice result, but I don't think that's what it's about. It's not about having your own business. Having your own business is a vehicle to being able to live your life the way you want to.
Yes.
And pursue your passions.
Yep. Yep. Very true. Very true. It's a lifestyle thing.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's it.
Well, good.
Yeah. I mean, I was always kind of a little bit of a troublemaker, where I would bend the rules a little bit childhood. So I kind of feel like that has also contributed towards being attracted to that lifestyle.
Right? Get it done one way or the other.
Exactly.
I don't know if I have received your resume. I don't think so. I've looked at LinkedIn. Do you have even an old resume? Do you have one that you could send me?
Yeah, I can pull something up.
Don't
I haven't really needed
create
one.
something. Just pull something that you had from the past. It'll give me some of
Okay.
that past history that we talked about a little bit. That would be
Okay.
great.
Yeah, I can send that.
And I assume it's all right that I did record this because I can't write fast enough to put notes down.
Oh yes, that's fine.
Great.
Just as long as you cut out the part about, what is with my wife.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, good. I may think it's something else I want to check with you on, but I think this has been really helpful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about it. So it's very helpful.
Yeah, pleasure.
Good. Well,
Yeah, and this was fun. It was really good to see you again.
yeah, it's good to see you, and wish you well as you make your way through this pandemic. And we're all hoping that things will steadily get better, and we'll be released of this yoke that we have around our necks right now, or masks, as the case may be.
Sure. Right.
Well, good. Well,
I
thank
send
you
my
so
best to
much.
Betty.
Yes, I sure will. And I've met your wife once, I think. I forget what the event was, but I met her once, and look forward to meeting her again, seeing her again, and seeing you as well.
Yeah, likewise.
Okay, well,
All
take
right.
care.
Well, thanks. You too. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too. All righty. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.